What is good, Raider Nation? Is your boy Raider Alex back with yet another video for you guys. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, let's jump right into the topic of this video. So the Raiders are 2-9. The Raiders put up 19 points on the board yesterday, and one thing that has been clear thus far is ever since we fired Luke Getsy, I mean, the last 2 weeks of Raiders offense has definitely looked better than what we had under Luke Getsy. Now, that's also not saying a whole lot. I understand the offense under Luke Getsy was absolutely terrible, but there's no doubt that there's been some improvement from the offensive side of the football. But one thing that has clearly shifted with our new offensive coordinator, with Scott Turner, is the fact that we are a much more pass-heavy team now. Against the Miami Dolphins, the Raiders dropped back and passed the football over 40 times. And against the Denver Broncos, we dropped back and passed the football over 50 times. And one thing I wanted to know was, head coach Antonio Pierce was asked about this. Take a listen.
Going today a little bit, but do you think you should have got it going a little more? Would you want to see more carries from them?
Of course. I don't want to see the ball thrown 40 times. I've said that like 1,000 times, but that's been kind of our MO. Actually, it was 53 today, so.
So as you can see, I mean, Antonio Pierce is not happy with this shift on the offensive side of the football. And just looking at it, I mean, he looks really frustrated about that. The body language says a lot right there. And essentially, I mean, he's calling out his offensive coordinator. So it definitely seems like there is a bit of tension between Antonio Pierce and between offensive coordinator Scott Turner. It's clear that Antonio Pierce wants a more balanced attack, but, you know, is that really possible for the Raiders? I mean, one thing that we've noticed is the run game just has not been there this season. It really feels like we don't have the great personnel, the great pieces to be able to be a smash mouth football team. And to me, that's really what Antonio Pierce wants. He wants to be a physically dominant team in that sense. He wants to wear the opposing defenses out. He wants to establish the tone and be able to run the rock. But unfortunately, that's just not the strengths of this offense. And I don't necessarily mind what Scott Turner has been doing, because thus far it's been working. You have to play to the strengths of your offense and not keep trying things just for the sake of trying to be balanced and, you know, hoping that it will get better, when time in and time out we've just seen that we're not a consistent football team when it comes to running the football. Last week, the Raiders threw the ball 52 times to only 16 rushes. And I will say, maybe Antonio Pierce does have a point, just due to the fact that I did notice Sincere McCormick, when he got some touches, he was very effective in those limited amount of snaps he had. He was averaging 6.5 yards per carry. So sure, you would have liked to see us maybe run the ball a little bit more, but I really feel like Antonio Pierce wants the play call selection to be close to 50-50 when it comes to pass to run. He wants that balanced approach. So this is definitely something that is very interesting. I mean, Antonio Pierce, the one thing you can say about him is he's not very good at holding things back. He says what's on his mind. He typically doesn't beat around the bush. There is a little bit of tension right there. But also too, I mean, I wonder, you know, how further this goes down the line, because one thing I was thinking about is, with the Raiders not having a true running back this season, this really leads me to believe that Antonio Pierce was all in on bringing back Josh Jacobs. I mean, we got to remember it. After Antonio Pierce's first couple games as the interim head coach, when we got back-to-back victories against the New York Giants and the New York Jets, Josh Jacobs was a big focal point in those games. And in the locker room, he even said to Josh Jacobs that he's the heart and soul of this offense. So I really think if it was up to Antonio Pierce, he would have wanted to keep Josh Jacobs. And just given the overall vision of Antonio Pierce, I think he wanted an offense that could establish the run and be a smash mouth football team. And that's where maybe there's definitely a disconnect between him and Tom Telesco, because Tom Telesco was unable to match the offer of Josh Jacobs. And look, even if they weren't able to secure Josh Jacobs, well, if you know that Antonio Pierce wants to run the football effectively, if you know that's the brand of football he wants to play, then you would think that they would do everything to try to get somebody else. If it wasn't Josh Jacobs, maybe they could have tried to get it like a Saquon Barkley, or you at the very least get a talented running back early in the draft, somebody that could be the future replacement of Josh Jacobs. Instead, we banked on Zamir White. That backfired on us. We brought in a veteran backup in Alexander Madison, which I think he's fine as a backup, but if he's your primary back, if he has to be the bell cow, if he has to be the 3-down running back for your team, it's definitely not looking good. This also may be a big reason why they ultimately ended up going with the hiring of Luke Getsy after the Cliff Kingsbury deal fell through, because Luke Getsy had a solid track record of being able to run the football with the Chicago Bears. But the one thing they failed to account for was just how important Justin Fields was to that system when it comes to running the football. I mean, they had years where Justin Fields was rushing for over 1,000 yards, and then you come here and you don't have a quarterback that can come anywhere close to that type of production. So it's obvious that the Luke Getsy hiring was just doomed from the start. Ultimately, I've enjoyed watching the offense a lot more the past 2 weeks. There's still a lot of improvement for sure, but it's looked a lot better. We've been able to, at the very least, move the ball more effectively. The play calling hasn't been super obvious. We're not seeing run pass consistently. We're not seeing a halfback draw on 3rd and 6 situations. So I don't know. My opinion is I think Antonio Pierce should cut him a little bit of slack. Maybe it wasn't the best thing to say this out in public. I probably would have preferred that he just said this directly to Scott Turner, but you know, something that's going to be very interesting down the line, and the Raiders are going to go on the road on Black Friday at Arrowhead Stadium against the Kansas City Chiefs, and it's going to be interesting to see how the offense moves forward now. Do we all of a sudden get a much run-heavy approach? Also, Gardner Minshew is not going to be out there. There's a chance that maybe Desmond Ridder is going to be out there. He is the most athletic quarterback we have currently, so he could give you some rushing upside. But personally, I don't really love this move from Antonio Pierce. I definitely think Scott Turner is doing a much better job thus far in 2 weeks. I understand it's a small sample size, but I definitely think he's doing a much better job than Luke Getsy was doing. And ultimately, I just don't think we have the right pieces, the right personnel to be a good, effective running team. I mean, sometimes you just have to accept what it is, play to your strengths. I mean, sometimes you can pass the ball, get it out quickly to potentially set up the run later in the football game. The one thing I don't want to see from Antonio Pierce is for him to be a stubborn head coach, for him to just have tunnel vision and be that type of coach that is like, no, this is my way. This is the way it's supposed to look, because that was one of the worst things that we hated about Josh McDaniels. And Antonio Pierce lived through that situation, so I think he definitely needs to watch out for that. But we'll just see how this offense ends up moving forward for the rest of the season. There's 6 games left. I've seen a lot of people say that we should go out there and sign Daniel Jones. Look, at this point, there's 6 games left. There's really no point, in my opinion, in bringing in Daniel Jones. Write it out with Desmond Ridder. I would like to think Aiden O'Connell should be back on the football field relatively soon. I mean, he was injured in week 6 against the Steelers, and initially they said that the injury was going to be 4 to 6 weeks, which, you know, we're already going to be at week 13. So I would like to think he's going to be back soon. But that's personally how I feel about the quarterback situation. Let's just write it out. There's 6 games left. No real point to bring in Daniel Jones, at least right now, especially when we're not even certain if Antonio Pierce is for sure going to be the head coach next season. And also, too, we're not sure who's going to be the offensive coordinator, so I'd rather you make the move when it comes to any free agent signings at the quarterback position after we get those things resolved. But definitely very interesting comments from Antonio Pierce, and it definitely seems like there is a bit of tension between him and our interim offensive coordinator, Scott Turner. But Raider Nation, let me know what you guys think about this subject in the comment section down below. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that's all for you guys in today's video. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.